Aki steps into the cell of the future devil, who chants repeatedly, "The future rules." The devil demands Aki to repeat the same phrase, but Aki ignores him and proceeds to state his purpose of forming a contract. He then inquires what the devil desires in exchange for this contract. The future devil notices Aki's dismissive attitude and decides to assess his future before considering the contract. The devil prompts Aki to place his head inside a hole in his gut, which takes Aki aback. Nevertheless, Aki complies with the request. The future devil chuckles for a moment before revealing the condition for their contract. He demands to reside in Aki's right eye and to grant him his powers. Aki seems unimpressed, and the future devil notices the look on his face. The devil explains that Aki's death is already predetermined by the future rules, which is why he appears indifferent. The future devil starts to narrate Aki's eventual demise, but Aki interrupts him, refusing to hear it. He instructs the devil to enter his eye and fulfill their agreement. Kishibe emerged victorious once again in a fight against Denji in power. After congratulating them on their efforts, he advised them to reduce their daily training routine to once a week. He also reminded them to stay level-headed and not forget the weapons at their disposal. Kishibe then announced that the division would be engaging in live combat training, targeting the formidable Snake Devil Woman and Katana Man. The entire new Division 4 would be participating, with failure resulting in the dissolution of the division and Kishibe disposing of Denji in power for real. Denji responded by declaring that he would spare Kishibe's life if it came to that, as Kishibe had made him stronger. As Kishibe meets with Makima, she expresses her hope that he will continue to mentor Denji in power. Kishibe sighs heavily in response, admitting that he is feeling weary of the task. He shares that his previous experiences of training dogs have often ended in heartbreak as they end up dying, leading him to drink more. He acknowledges that training toys is a different story, but even at his age, he finds himself getting attached to them. Despite this, Kishibe suspects that the Public Safety Commission was not completely unaware of the attack on the divisions. He turns to Makima and asks if she had any knowledge about it. Kishibe makes it clear to Makima that he is not concerned about her plans or the number of dogs that might die in the process, as long as her actions are in the best interest of mankind. Makima responds by stating that her primary objective is to save as many people as possible from the devils. She goes on to explain that if the operation is successful, Division 4's existence will be made public, providing them with greater freedom and allowing them to save even more lives. However, Kishibe doesn't seem convinced and accuses Makima of being dishonest. He calls her a liar, suggesting that he believes there may be ulterior motives behind her actions. Katana Man and Akane Sawatari huddle in their hideout, surrounded by their comrades. Akane voices her concern that no matter where they go, they cannot evade Makima's grasp. She warns the others that, even if Katana Man falls in battle, he can be resurrected, but they must take care not to suffer the same fate. The men look puzzled, prompting Katana Man to explain that they possess a secret weapon, passed down by his grandfather. He reveals that beneath their hideout lies an army of zombies, created from the bodies of those who were unable to pay their debts. Yutaro confronts Aki, having heard rumors that he is on a mission to take down the infamous Gun Devil. He questions Aki's confidence, given his recent defeat at the hands of another adversary. Yutaro shares that he too joined public safety in the hopes of avenging his personal grudge against the Gun Devil, but has since realized that killing the entity is an impossible task. However, Yutaro finds himself growing increasingly frustrated with Aki's demeanor, as he perceives him as weak despite his posturing. Aki's attempts to act tough only serve to irritate Yutaro further. As Yutaro looks at Aki, he becomes increasingly agitated, finding him to be weak and yet pretending to be tough. Aki, however, pays little attention to Yutaro's opinion and urges him and the others to watch and learn as he attempts to take down the Gun Devil. He even jokes that if he fails, they can laugh at him. After dropping Aki off at public safety, Yutaro can't resist expressing his frustration and tosses a canned drink at Aki's head. But despite his annoyance, Yutaro admits that he is still rooting for Aki's success. He also offers a word of advice, having heard that everyone in the special division is insane. Yutaro warns Aki to watch his back and be cautious, as the job can be dangerous and unpredictable. Makima meets with the current leader of the Yakuza organization that Katana Man is affiliated with. The boss apologizes for the recent altercation between his group and the younger members of Katana Man's faction, clarifying that he did not order the attack. He then shows Makima a picture of Akane, claiming that she was responsible for inciting the conflict and was involved in making deals with the Gun Devil. Makima presses the Yakuza boss for details, asking what kind of deal was made with the Gun Devil. The boss reveals that they paid the Gun Devil 20,000 yen in exchange for guns and ammunition. Makima then requests that the Yakuza boss provide her with a list of names of all individuals within his organization who have made contracts with the Gun Devil. The Yakuza boss agrees, assuming that Makima intends to simply incarcerate the offenders for a brief period. Makima insists that she needs the names of individuals from other Yakuza families as well, not just from his organization. The man is hesitant, warning that such a move could trigger a violent conflict between the families. He suggests that Makima should understand the concept of necessary evil, explaining that if the Yakuza factions were to destroy each other, it would open the door for foreign mafia to take control of Japan. He warns that the Chinese and Russian mafia are far more dangerous and ruthless than their own organization and that they are currently keeping those foreign groups at bay. Makima produces a paper bag, which the man assumes is a bribe. He laughs, insisting that no amount of money could change his mind. However, Makima reveals that the bag contains something far more disturbing. Inside are the eyes of the loved ones, family members, and relatives of everyone in the room. Makima calmly addressed the group, explaining that they had someone who could return the eyes without any issues. If they cooperated, she would introduce them to that person. But things quickly took a turn when one of the men grabbed Makima by the shoulder, ready to throw a punch. However, as Makima stared at him, something strange happened. His nose began to bleed, and he fell to his knees, unable to move. In a cold, measured tone, Makima accused the man of using necessary evil as an excuse for his actions. She made it clear that society didn't need excuses, only results. With that, the group fell silent, realizing that they were dealing with someone who was not to be trifled with. As the special division and the police surround Katana Man's hideout, Aki asks Kishibe what the plan is. Kishibe bluntly replies that there is no plan and that they just need to go in. Aki, Denji, Power, and Kobani follow Kishibe inside. Shina and Furuno introduce themselves to Kishibe, but he brushes them off, instructing the police and Division 2 to seal off the entrances to the first floor and basement while the Special Division deals with the terrorists. He warns them that the Special Division is mostly composed of non-humans, and if any of them escape, it could lead to more casualties than the terrorists themselves. Kishibe then introduces the members of the Special Division, so that they know who they may need to engage. Beam, a shark fiend, enters the first floor through the wall, and upon seeing the zombies, he gets excited at the prospect of how much he can eat. Kishibe explains that Beam can swim inside any surface and can transform his head into his devil form for a few moments. Beam starts eating the zombies but accidentally tries to bite a hooded man, who kicks him in response. He then apologizes to Galgali, the violence fiend, explaining that he had mistaken him for a zombie. Kishibe warns that devils become weaker when they become fiends, but even as a fiend, the violence fiend is still quite strong. Galgali wears a gas mask that dispenses poison gas, which he must keep on at all times. While fighting off zombies, he spots a woman and warns her to leave, as a bite from a zombie would turn her into one of them. When she turns towards him, he realizes that she is actually a devil named Prince, specifically the Spider Devil. Kishibe explains that humanoid devils are usually friendly and often take on human form. Prince transforms into her devil form and begins killing the zombies. As the group continues to fight, a zombie head rolls towards them and hits the angel devil's shoe, which he finds irritating. However, he then proceeds to pick up the head and eat it. Kishibe explains that he is a special case and harbors no ill will towards humans. However, he warns them to stay away from him as physical contact can drain their lifespan. Angel asks Aki if he has a handkerchief that he could borrow, and Aki obliges, surprising Angel with how close he gets. Suddenly, a man appears and attempts to shoot Aki. The angel devil shields Aki with his wing and Aki quickly subdues the attacker. Aki orders Angel to take the man outside, which annoys him but he complies. Aki then instructs Denji, Power, and Kobani to leave the zombie fighting to the fiends and focus on finding Katana Man and Akane. They split up, not knowing where their targets are. Aki arrives on the 4th floor and is immediately met with gunfire from a man exiting one of the rooms. Aki evades the bullets and takes down the attacker. Soon, 4 more men emerge, but one by one, they collapse from nosebleeds. Aki presses on and eventually finds Akane. He urges her to come with him quietly, but she summons the snake devil and commands it to attack. The ghost devil appears before Aki and Akane orders it to kill him. Aki uses the future devil's power to glimpse into the future and start cutting off the ghost devil's arms one by one. Despite his best efforts, Aki gets overwhelmed and the ghost devil grabs him by the neck. Akane orders the ghost devil to choke him to death. And with that, we conclude this episode.